The earth trembles, not in rage, but in memory. Far beneath the red sands of East Africa, something ancient stirs. A pulse, a slow breath from the deep. The kind of movement that reminds us the planet is alive. For centuries, the people of Ethiopia's Afar region have walked this ground, never imagining that beneath their feet, the world was quietly unmaking itself. But one morning, the desert cracked open. The earth split like fabric pulled too tight. Dust rose like smoke, and from the fissures, heat shimmered. A heat that came from the heart of the world itself. It was the day scientists realized Africa was beginning to tear apart. At first, the signs were subtle, a distant rumble, the faint scent of sulfur in the wind. But soon the tremors grew violent, over 100 earthquakes in a single week, each one a heartbeat of the planet, thudding through stone and sand. In 2005, this land gave birth to something unseen before in human history, a rift so vast, so sudden, that even those who studied the earth their whole lives stood in silence. The Dabahu volcano erupted, not with chaos, but with purpose. Rivers of magma poured upward, carving through the surface, breaking open miles of desert floor. In just a few days, the ground had shifted by more than 30 miles, a process that should have taken millions of years unfolding before human eyes. Scientists rushed to Afar to witness what they once believed could only happen in ancient epochs. And as they mapped the land, as they looked into the burning cracks, they realized they weren't watching destruction, they were watching creation. A new ocean had begun to form. Beneath that blistering sun, in the dust and silence of Ethiopia, the earth had opened a window into its soul. For most of us, continents are permanent. They feel eternal, unchanging. But to the earth, they are only moments, shapes that drift and dance, break and return. The East African Rift is proof of this quiet movement, a living wound that runs for thousands of kilometers, from Ethiopia all the way to Mozambique. Here, two massive tectonic plates, the Somali and the Nubian, are drifting apart, just a few millimeters every year, barely enough to notice. Yet that slow drift is writing a future none of us will live to see. This is how oceans are born, not in sudden floods or cataclysms, but in patience, in the silent stretch of stone, the slow heartbeat of magma. Scientists call it rifting, but to those who stand upon it, it feels like the earth breathing in and exhaling something new. Lakes Tanganyika and Malawi trace the rift's path. Deep valleys cut like scars across the land. Volcanoes rise like sentinels, keeping watch over the birth of the unknown. Erta Al, they call one of them, the smoking mountain. Its lava lake bubbles endlessly, as if the earth cannot decide whether to destroy or to create. From space, satellites capture the slow unfurling of the rift. Each year the land moves, just slightly, a few millimeters of separation. But over millions of years, those millimeters will stretch into miles, and the miles into oceans. Someday, perhaps 5 or 10 million years from now, the Red Sea will break through the land, pouring its water into the low valleys of Ethiopia and Kenya. A new coastline will appear. Somalia and half of East Africa will drift away, becoming an island surrounded by a newborn sea. The Earth will look different then, and the maps we draw today will be ancient myths. What we call the continent of Africa will be too, and between them a new ocean will breathe. It sounds like legend, doesn't it? Like the stories of Atlantis or lost worlds beneath the waves. But this is not myth. This is science. Quiet, patient, relentless science. Deep below the crust, molten rock moves like a tide, swirling in slow currents of heat and pressure. These currents, rising from the mantle, push gently on the crust above, pulling the plates apart. And as the land stretches, it weakens. The brittle rock cracks. Magma seeps upward, filling the gaps, cooling into new stone, the first layer of a future ocean floor. This process has shaped every continent we know. It's how South America once tore away from Africa, how the Atlantic Ocean came to be, and now the same rhythm is playing again. But what makes the East African Rift so mesmerizing isn't just its scale, it's that we can see it happening. We are living in the middle of creation. For the first time in human history, we are witnessing the birth of an ocean, and that realization carries both wonder and unease. Because the Earth doesn't just move for us to observe, it moves on its own terms. For the millions who live across this rift, the farmers of Ethiopia, the herders of Kenya, the families of Tanzania, the shifting ground is a quiet threat. Roads fracture overnight, rivers change their paths. Sometimes entire villages disappear into the widening cracks. To live here is to live on the skin of a breathing world, a world that does not promise stillness. And yet, life continues. People plant their crops in the same volcanic soil that feeds the rift's restless fire. Children play beside steaming vents, their laughter echoing in valleys shaped by magma. Because here, the Earth's danger and its beauty are the same thing. The land gives life, the land takes it. And in between, it tells a story. When scientists walk across this terrain, they see more than rocks. They see time itself, frozen, fractured, alive. They see the process that once built the Himalayas, that split Pangaea apart. The rift is not an event. It's a conversation between past and future, a reminder that everything solid is temporary. The ground we stand on was once ocean floor, and one day it will be ocean again. If you listen closely in the Afar Depression, you can hear the earth whisper, a low rumble beneath the wind. It's the sound of continents letting go. Geologists track this movement with satellites, lasers, and sensors buried in the ground. Every tremor, every inch of motion recorded with precision. But even with all this data, the truth remains elusive. Why here? Why now? Some believe a great plume of magma has risen from deep within the mantle, a column of molten heat slowly pushing upward, forcing the crust to stretch and break. Others see it as part of Earth's natural rhythm, a breath that comes once every few 100 million years. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's neither. Because what we're seeing defies the neatness of theory. It feels intentional, as if the planet itself has chosen to begin again. And maybe that's what frightens us most, the realization that our world doesn't need us to evolve. It evolves because it must. We think of ourselves as the center of Earth's story, but here in the East African Rift, we are background noise, a brief flicker of awareness in a tale that spans eons. The rift reminds us that creation is never gentle. It comes with fire, with fracture, with loss. But from that loss comes something entirely new. One day, water will rush into this valley. It will fill the cracks and canyons, swirling over volcanic rock until the land itself becomes sea. The Red Sea and the Indian Ocean will merge, and East Africa will become an island surrounded by blue. New coastlines will form, new species will rise. The desert will breathe salt air, and coral will grow where dust once lay. And though none of us will live to see it, the world will remember this moment, the first breath of that new ocean. But even beauty carries its shadow. For every ecosystem that flourishes, another will fade. For every birth of land, there is burial of another. Volcanoes will grow angrier, earthquakes will continue, and communities that once thrived on the fertile rift will be forced to move. The land that fed them will become water, their homes will sink beneath waves, and humanity will once again adapt to the Earth's will. We like to think we control the planet. We build, we dig, we name its mountains. But the truth is simpler. The Earth allows us for a time, then it moves on. Perhaps that's why this story feels so haunting, because it reminds us that permanence is an illusion, that everything we see, cities, borders, even mountains, are only temporary guests in the great conversation of change. When continents shift, time itself seems to breathe. What was once buried becomes sky. What was once sea becomes stone. The earth is not finished. It is always becoming. And somewhere beneath our feet, in the dark where magma glows like embers, the planet is writing its next chapter. Listen closely. Do you hear it? That distant murmur beneath the stone? That is the sound of continents drifting, the sound of the world remaking itself. It is the sound of creation disguised as silence. And beneath our feet, the earth continues to breathe.